Shalom, I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's report, we're going to be sharing with you an interview from the land of Israel by an Orthodox Jew named Nehemia Gordon, who is interviewing the spokesperson for the newly reconstructed Sanhedrin, which historically was a rabbinical court that represented the legislative affairs of the Jewish people. And now, Nehemia's interview with the representative of the Sanhedrin.
Shalom, this is Nehemia Gordon with Hebrew Voices. I'm excited to bring you an exclusive interview with Professor Hillel Weiss, the official spokesman of the Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. According to Professor Weiss, the Sanhedrin was an institution established by Moses himself in the book of Numbers, chapter 11. Secular historians date it back to the early 1st century BC during the Hellenistic period. Sanhedrin is a Greek word meaning council. All agree that the Sanhedrin was forcibly disbanded by Roman decree around 359 AD. On October 13th, 2004, a council of 70 rabbis gathered in Tiberias to reinstitute the Sanhedrin. Since then, it has received a mixed reception in the Jewish world. Most ignore it. Some Orthodox Jews even condemn it. Professor Weiss himself has even described it as the renewed and rejected Sanhedrin. My interview with Professor Weiss was recorded sitting on stone benches in an ancient Jerusalem alleyway about 50 feet from David's tomb, with thousands of tourists streaming by. Professor Weiss chose this location because it is one of the main locations where the Sanhedrin meets. It also has symbolic significance for the Sanhedrin. The Catholic Church is currently trying to take over the tomb of David, and the Israeli government seems intent on letting them do so. Professor Weiss and the Sanhedrin are opposed to handing over what they consider to be a Jewish holy site to the Catholic Church, and that's why they chose this spot to hold some of their meetings. I guess they're saying if Pope Francis wants the tomb of David, he'll have to drive out the Sanhedrin to get it. Now, the sound quality isn't ideal, but listening to this brief interview will be well worth your time. Shalom, Professor Weiss.
Shalom Avracha.
So, Professor Weiss, let's start with who you are. What are you? You're an Orthodox Jew, and you were a professor at Bar-Ilan University. You're now a professor emeritus. What were you a professor of?
Hebrew literature, and especially classic Hebrew literature like Shmuel Yosef Agnon.
Shai Agnon.
Yes.
I think a lot of my listeners won't know who Shai Agnon or Bialik were, but they're actually luminaries of modern Hebrew literature, right?
Yes.
I mean, so Israelis study Shai Agnon and Bialik the way that maybe Americans study Shakespeare or Mark Twain. It's really the modern Hebrew literature. That was your expertise. But now you're the spokesman for the Sanhedrin. Tell us, let's start with something really basic. What is a Sanhedrin?
Sanhedrin is the Supreme High Court according to Jewish law, and he should hold all the authorities of the law and scatter the law all over the nation.
To spread the law throughout the world.
Exactly.
Okay. So, and it's your understanding, and I've read some stuff you've written, and you on your website, thesanhedrin.org. We'll post a link on nehemiaswall.com, and they talk there on the website about how, according to your understanding, the Sanhedrin goes back to the time of Moses. So tell us a little bit about that.
Of course. Hashem, God, said to Moses to collect the elders of Israel from the time of Egypt, before Sinai.
Yeah.
And they went to Paro, and all of them ran away because they were afraid.
So that was the first Sanhedrin, they ran away?
And all the history is like this.
Wait, so let's just be clear. So you're saying that the first Sanhedrin, which is a council of 71 elders...
Yes, they were elders. It's not written there 70. After in the desert, after Jethro came, and all...
Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses?
Yes, he gave the advice how Moshe will not be exhausted.
That's like around Exodus 18 or so, yeah.
Yes, and also in Bamidbar,
and the book of Numbers, yeah.
And then he collected the 70 elders with a prophecy, and this was really the first activated Sanhedrin. And Joshua also collect the elders, and so it comes from generation to generation that there was this court that represents all the nation and hold the keys of the law, and he has the authority to change law, to add laws, and to do everything according to the Torah that gives him the samchut, the authority to handle and to keep and to impose the Torah upon the people of Israel, and also the entire world. If they are Gentiles, they are Gentiles. There is no wish to make Gentiles Jews.
So just so I understand, so you're saying that, like maybe in modern English terms, I would say in my American language, that the Sanhedrin is the supreme religious authority of the Jewish people and really for the whole world according to Orthodox Judaism.
Yes, it should be like this.
It should be, okay. So what happened? So now we're in 2016, and the last Sanhedrin, I guess before recently, when was the last time there was a universally recognized Sanhedrin among the Jewish people?
I think that till the 3rd or 4th century, even after the Second Temple was destroyed.
Yeah, there continued to be a Sanhedrin.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to today. So when was this modern Sanhedrin established?
It was established 11 years ago. It was a long process. Now, but the Sanhedrin was established in Tiberia on Kafchet Tishrei in October on 204. From then and on, we started to be active and to raise courts for special topics, to make people, to find experts that will deal with these major topics.
Yeah.
And only very rarely we are gathering in very special occasions.
Okay. So tell me about what happened a couple of weeks ago. It was reported in the media that the Sanhedrin gathered at the Cardo in Jerusalem and performed a ceremony related to the new moon for the first time in 2,000 years. So what happened at the Cardo?
I will explain. Came 3 Dayanim, 3 judges from the court in an event that it was an exercise.
Okay.
How will be the Rosh Chodesh in the temple with the sacrifices?
Okay. And Rosh Chodesh is the beginning of the Hebrew month?
Yes.
Okay. When you say it was an exercise, explain what that means for people.
It means that now the temple doesn't exist. The work of the temple was stopped for 2,000 years. There are so many laws and fears from those ceremonies and those meaning of sacrificing.
You say fears?
Fears, yes,
people
of
are
course.
afraid.
They're afraid.
So Jewish people are afraid, you're saying, of the temple sacrifices and ceremonies.
Not only from this, they're afraid to be Jews.
Wow.
We are like the first Sanhedrin that all of them ran away from Pharaoh. All the Jews are running away from the Temple Mount.
Wow.
They are running away from their identity. They say, we are usual, normal people. We have not chosen. Leave all these stories.
So a couple of weeks ago, you got together at the Cardo, and what happened?
It was
you did an exercise.
It was the 10th of March. This day was the beginning of the Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet.
Okay.
The
beginning of the Hebrew month
yes.
of the 13th month Adar Bet. Yeah.
According to the Jewish law, from the Torah, from the Bible, and from the Chazal.
From the rabbinical sages of the Talmud and Mishnah.
2 witnesses, at least 2 witnesses, that show the new moon in the new months should come, they must come to the court, that should sit on the Temple Mount in Lishkat HaGazit.
That's the chamber of the hewn stone in the Temple Mount.
And then the rabbis will investigate them if they really saw the moon or they just imagine.
Okay.
And if they are persuaded that the moon, they saw the moon, then they say Mekudash, Mekudash, and
which means sanctified, sanctified. They say it 3 times, right?
Yes, they say
Mekudash, 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 sanctified,
and
sanctified,
they put
sanctified.
a big light and all over the big mountains of Eretz Israel.
This is the signal fires.
The signal fires.
So this was done up until, if I understand correct, according to your understanding, up until the time of Hillel Weiss in 358 or 359 AD or CE,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And then
זה ככה מקובל.
That's what most people think.
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, there were other Jewish groups or possibly quasi-Jewish groups.
Yes.
Who maybe they weren't, like the Samaritans, who set up false signal fires. And as a result, they sent messengers instead of signal fires. But what we're supposed to do is have a signal fire. And I believe the first one is in Har HaMishcha, next to Mount Scopus. And then it's Saltaba and
till the Golan, and from the Golan Heights to Syria, and from there all the diaspora.
Now, if you light something on the Golan Heights, you'll get rockets from Al-Nusra, but we won't. That's a different discussion. All right, from Al-Qaeda in Syria. Okay, so that was done according to everybody up until 358 or 359 CE.
Israel was scattered. We have been exiled. We couldn't do it.
Okay, and then Hillel II came along at the last Sanhedrin, and he established the
new calendar.
The new calendar.
It's an automatic calendar according calculations, and he put inside all kinds of calculations that the holidays will not make too much troubles.
So he established this calculated calendar, and you haven't, just to be clear, the Sanhedrin today, that was established in 2004, they haven't come and said, we're doing away with the Hillel calendar?
No, not exactly, no. We don't want to make...
So let's be clear about that, because that's the impression people are getting.
No, we take upon us all the usual tradition and the Jewish law, and the main point is that Hashem give the people, the Jewish people, the law, the authority, the symbol to upon the time. So the main thing is the authority. The authority, what is a law at all? What is the difference between the Torah, the Jewish law, and any other law? What is, if a Kara'i or a Christian will say, oh, I see the moon, it's not enough.
So there needs to be the authority of the Sanhedrin.
Yes.
Not just the moon is seen, it needs to be proclaimed that it was seen by the Sanhedrin.
This is the mitzvah.
Okay.
And
this is the actual commandment.
Yes.
Isn't to cite the moon, you're saying it's for the Sanhedrin to proclaim that the moon was
but
sighted.
when the great codificators of the Jewish law, let's say from the time of Rasag, Rabbi Sadia Gaon, from the 10th century, and to the Rambam and many others, there is a debate if in the future the Jews will restart to make the months according seeing the moon, or it will go on automatically.
In other words, will the Hillel II new calendar continue for all time?
Yes.
Or will it only be until
Exactly.
the Mashiach comes or the Sanhedrin is established?
Exactly.
Okay. And by the way, this debate was raging in an Israeli newspaper a week or two ago, and you were part of that debate. Can I read something you wrote in that debate?
Yes.
So this is my English translation. So you wrote about the calculated calendar, quote, that it insults anyone with intelligence who observes every month anew the alienation from the first public foundational commandment, which is, and then you quote from Exodus 12:2, this month shall be for you the beginning of months.
Exactly.
So explain what you mean. That's an amazing concept.
You are coming to the synagogue. Yes. You hear the Gabbai or the Chazan says the months will be, let's say, on Wednesday.
Wait, I got to explain that because people don't know. So in an Orthodox synagogue, every month, you said the cantor or the, I guess deacon is the best way.
The one is nominated.
Yeah. So someone will, one of the lay leaders will announce and say, this is when the month begins to the second, and you're saying that insults people's intelligence because they go outside and they see it's not there.
Exactly.
Wow, and that's an alienation from a foundational commandment.
Yes.
So a public foundational commandment. What is this concept of a public foundational commandment? You said mitzvat yesod tziburi. This is an interesting concept.
It's a very, very interesting concept because it is foundation of the Jewish people. When we read about Exodus, before all Yetziat Mitzrayim, before all the Exodus, it starts, החודש הזה לכם ראש חודשים. This month will be, it's the renewing of the time for all the world, not only for the Jewish people. And I want to tell you a story that this is the 5 years that we make the exercise of the Pesach sacrifice. And this year it will be in Yirtzeh Hashem on the Olive Mount. And it's exactly in the beginning of the second temple, in the time of Ezra and Nehemia, all the Gentiles, they wanted to stop the building of the temple.
Well, that's going to conclude this week's report, where we shared with you an interview from the land of Israel conducted by Orthodox Jew Nehemia Gordon, who spoke with a representative of the renewed Sanhedrin, which is a rabbinical court that was in operation in the first century, who made rulings regarding Jewish religious affairs. Until we do it again, Shalom and Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.